Hi, guys, and welcome back to the Rare Wellness Podcast, the podcast designed to help you heal holistically and give you the tools that you need to thrive. We're making it easy to understand medicine and wellness with practical steps from the experts, one podcast at a time. The only thing that we ask is that if this episode helps you live just a little bit better or a little more aligned, that you'll leave us a review and that you'll share this with a friend. That's all that we ask so that we can continue to provide you with free, valuable knowledge from the experts of well-being. Today, we're going to be talking about gut health. It feels like so many women are constantly feeling bloated, and there's so many supplements on the market, green drinks and pills and advice from influencers. It's so hard to get the facts straight. So today we're going to be interviewing Alyssa Reavis, who uses a functional nutritionalist approach to lifestyle, exercise, and diet to help women heal their gut and thrive from the inside out. Our guest, Alyssa, was born and raised in Spokane. She was recruited to run collegiate cross country and track at a private school in Eugene, Oregon. That was where she succeeded in running greater than expected, but also developed an eating disorder that would impact her for years to come. And it was through this journey, her love for functional nutrition and research into the holistic realm came to fruition. So during her undergrad, she obtained her bachelor's in exercise science. She began to work as an exercise therapist, and she has now worked in the field for almost 7 years. She pursued her master's in integrative and functional nutrition online while she was working. And her dream in life is helping other women cultivate a balanced approach to their diet, their lifestyle, their mindset, and their physical health through one-on-one coaching for therapeutic nutritional guidance. Alyssa, thank you so much for coming on. I'm so excited to chat with you today.
Thank you. And I'm really glad to be here. So thanks for having me and inviting me onto the podcast.
Yeah. So I like to ask every guest that comes on, what does wellness mean to you?
To me, I think wellness has meant, I think the definition for myself has changed over the years too, especially as I've been researching and learning different things about wellness overall. But just keeping your body and your mind really happy overall and kind of synergistic, working together, because I've been in a lot of different places throughout a health journey in my life, and you feel so many different things, and even like really focusing on your health and digging maybe too far sometimes can be overwhelming, and it put me in probably a worse place than I could have been. Just maybe focusing on the basics and stuff of wellness. So I think maybe just trying to make it as simple as possible at first, and then just trying to stay like literally happy throughout the whole process.
No, this is so true. And I could not relate more. I feel like a lot of our listeners could probably also relate. I think especially for women, I feel like so many of us, like if there's like an obsession of like either counting calories or orthorexia or like whatever it can be, like wellness can become so obsessive that it starts to take away joy if it's not done correctly. And so I love what you said about like how you feel matters too, like your happiness overall and like your integrated self. And also I feel like from my time knowing you, so I actually met you in a yoga class. So if you guys don't know, Alyssa is also, I just love how like you embody so many different aspects of wellness. And I know that you've done yoga as a yoga teacher, and then obviously like exercise and nutrition. But can you explain to us kind of like what is functional nutrition and how did you get into that?
Yeah. So functional nutrition, by definition for a lot of people lately, especially if you didn't know about it in the most recent years and are now like coming to terms and learning about what it is, a lot of people just say it's like finding the root cause or like of underlying symptoms or issues of, diseases or whatever symptoms you're experiencing, disorders, and using alternative route other than Western medicine pretty much. But what is not often said as much about functional nutrition or integrative nutrition is that they're missing the provider to client or provider to patient relationship and experience, because that patient or client has to develop trust with their provider. And that is a huge portion of functional nutrition that I like to encompass. Because I know for a fact for myself, working with different providers over the years or practitioners, you have to trust them to be invested in that protocol that they have made for you. And it is really hard to be invested if you don't trust them at all. You don't feel comfortable, and that leaves a gap in that practitioner being able to help the client. Because if they're not willing to like fully go all in and explain all their symptoms or like traumatic experiences they've had, that leaves a lot of gaps and can ultimately, make sacrifices for the client, which it doesn't lead to healing at all. So
totally. Well, and like you said, especially when you're taking these alternative routes, like it takes vulnerability, and it can be so scary, and like you can't really deal with the root cause if someone's not being honest for the root cause. Well, before we even dive into the topic, just so out of curiosity, like have you tried some like alternative therapies, and like in finding good practitioners one-on-one, did you find that it was like easy to be vulnerable with every person, or like how did you find the right fit for you?
Yeah, that part was hard. I think it's a journey. Like obviously it sucks like having to spend money and invest finances into this, like hopping around from practitioner to practitioner. And I think like my knowledge and learning nutrition and functional like approaches as well has helped me find better people or discern whether or not I want to work with them, I guess. So I haven't really ultimately still found like the one. I'm actually personally working with a gal right now who's done HTMA testing for me, which is like a hair tissue mineral analysis. So getting a lot deeper dive into your cell health and whatnot. So that being like a side note, but
I feel like it's almost like dating, like the way you're describing, because it's like you're literally having, when you're finding like the right, whether it's like a wellness coach or you're finding the right provider or functional nutritionist, or like it's like you have to almost like go through the process of dating, and then you invest, then you're like, oh, this isn't the right fit, then you try again, and then what do I want? It just so it makes total sense.
I always knew there was more that could be come out of it, so like this just isn't the one quite yet. So
that's fair.
Trial
I feel
and
like
error.
I'm on the same journey. So today's podcast is brought to you by the Premium Center for Regenerative Medicine and Stem Cell Therapy in the Northwest Center for Regenerative Medicine. Get back to the activities that you love without needing surgery. You can book your appointment at nwc4rm.com. Again, that's nwc4rm.com. This podcast is also brought to you by Rare Wellness Supplements. You can head over to rareplanethealth.com to get your supplements. My personal favorite is the premium fish oil filled with omega-3s. Again, you can go to rareplanethealth.com and get the supplements that you most need to support your health and wellness today. Lastly, this podcast is also brought to you by Rare Wellness. Rare Wellness is located on the South Hill in Spokane and is one center that provides all the wellness tools that you could need. Whether you're looking for a hands-on, premium, intimate yoga studio with a therapeutic emphasis, bar classes, Tai Chi classes, if you're looking for skincare treatments, injectable, hydrofacial, microneedling, organic spa treatments, if you're wanting to get therapeutic massaged or book functional medicine appointments to get down to the root cause of your inflammation, Rare Wellness is the place for you. Whatever your wellness needs are, they have it covered. So to book your appointment today, go to rarewellness.com. Again, go to rarewellness.com and mention this podcast for 10% off when you're booking. Okay, time to get back to the episode. So back to gut health. What even is the gut-brain connection that we always hear about?
So there's a lot of things that go into it, but first off, our gut possesses its own nervous system. It's called the enteric nervous system, which maybe not everyone knows. And so our gut is our biggest digestive organ, immune organ, and endocrine organ of the human body. So in the intestine, it is connected to the autonomic nervous system, which you hear often of the parasympathetic nervous system and your sympathetic nervous system. So either rest and digest or fight or flight. And the vagus nerve is directly innervated into that spinal cord and down into the mucus and muscle layers of our gut. So the enteric nervous system is like basically innervated within the vagus nerve. So the vagus nerve starts in our spinal cord and directly innervates, literally has its fingers into our gut. So what happens is we get signals sent either bidirectionally, either from the top down or down up. So we can have effect either from our brain or our gut that, affect either or. And we have like multiple biological networks involved in the neural network, our neuroendocrine pathways, our system, our immune system, our metabolic pathways as well. So when we also have microbial changes, like within our bacteria in the gut, that can influence our brain physiology and behavioral cognitive function. So if people have heard of certain neurotransmitters that our gut produces, such as GABA, dopamine, serotonin, amino acids, or these microbial metabolites called short-chain fatty acids. This all basically means that we have a direct effect on our mood and emotions with what's going on in our gut, and vice versa. Going on in our brain can directly affect our gut, which is crazy.
There's literally like a gut-brain connection through this vagus nerve. And that makes so much sense, like why sometimes people, if they like feel super stressed, like you feel like you get super bloated and like can't digest. So it's interesting that you mentioned it goes two ways, right? That like your gut can affect your brain and your brain can affect your gut. So does that mean that like what you think can impact your gut health, but then your gut health can, like what you eat can impact what you think? Like what comes first, the chicken or the egg?
Yeah, that's always a good question, is like which is first. But yeah, it does go both ways. So like for me, for example, today, like being a little nervous for the podcast, that is affecting my gut of how like, some noises and whatnot. I'm like, okay, just got to breathe right and calm the nervous system down. Or for example, if you get nervous before like public speaking, or you're going to go give a presentation or something, or you're just, nervous or whatever, that can affect how your gut functions. If you've ever had like, or even before like a performance, let's say in athletics, you like have to go to the bathroom before because you're so nervous, that's a direct effect from our brain.
So no, 100%. So how does having like anxiety, or like I've heard just in general, our society as a whole, our stress levels are rising, right? So how is being more stressed as a society, or just like chronic anxiety, impacting gut health, do you think?
Yeah, so very heavily. And again, like having that stress and anxiety is also going to affect like the bacteria in our gut, and also the integrity of our gut, like the strength of the intestinal lining. But so cortisol, which has been like a buzzword lately on social media and stuff, which is one of our main stress hormones, it's a good hormone to have, obviously. We need it, but in excess, cortisol can regulate neuroimmune signaling and affects our intestinal barrier integrity. So if your cortisol has been elevated for a chronic amount of time, whatever that stress is from, not eating, people in your life, your work, job, whatever, then the stress hormones and immune mediators of like our central nervous system, the neurotransmitters can change our whole entire gut environment and alter the microbiota composition, which is not good either.
No. Okay, so obviously cortisol is like a big problem for our gut health. What are some maybe like practical tips for people listening, ways that they can start to try to like lower their cortisol levels on a day-to-day basis? Maybe just like some habits or tips that they can have to do that.
So I'm struggling with this right now as well. Something I've been working on. Main thing so you want to do is get back to the basics. So regulating your circadian rhythm is really important, because cortisol works with and fluctuates with our circadian rhythm. So one major thing is that when you wake up, trying not to reach for your phone or
So
go
hard.
on screens. Yeah, exactly. Because it's like some people's work and their lives are on their phone and they're like, I gotta read my emails or messages in the morning. Or, maybe influencers are like, oh, I just got a brand deal. I gotta go do something right now. But not reaching for the phone if you can, at least like the first 30 minutes of when I'm waking up. And even if it's not sunny out, like sun obviously helps, but literally just daylight itself, getting outside and looking outside, maybe putting your feet on the ground barefoot, eating a whole balanced meal in the morning as well, gets your day started. A lot of women especially go without meals in the morning, skipping, because a lot of the time they don't feel hungry, which is a sign of hormone imbalance, cortisol imbalance. But making sure you have your fat, proteins, carbs, and then coffee is a big one. Trying not to drink your coffee before your food, at least, can really be effective. So as long as you're like eating and drinking your coffee together, that's fine. Just get a few bites before you drink your coffee, at least. Always helpful. Going on walks throughout the day, or like at least one walk, or if you can after meals or something. I work in a really dark environment. Like I don't have windows around me. So I really try to make it a point to get out at lunchtime to see, again, daylight or the sunlight if I can. So my body, my brain knows where I'm at during the day, not just like shutting down and again, exposed to artificial lighting. So
I think that is such a helpful list. And cortisol imbalance is something that I have also really had to work on and am continuing to work on because like for years I dealt with like horrible acne from the time I was in high school till like last year. And most of the dermatologists, and talking about alternative therapies, like most of the dermatologists and doctors that I went to would always just like push drugs on me, but no one would ever look at like the root cause. And it turned out that for me, so much of it was based on like, I was always in fight or flight mode. Like I had gut issues. I had like my skin was very reactive to stress. And so lowering that was so important. So anyway, for people listening, like it's crazy how much cortisol affects, like it can cause everything, like, right? Like it can cause immune diseases. It can manifest itself in so many ways in your body. I think it's really interesting though, talking about some of those tips that you mentioned. So many influencers or even like vegan culture, like a lot of this stuff that has been so prevalent over the last couple of years is actually really bad for cortisol imbalance, right? Because it's like, think about it. First thing we do when we wake up in the morning for so many women is like, I'm going to go get that cup of coffee on an empty stomach, which you just mentioned, like that immediately spikes your glucose, spikes your cortisol levels. And then going from that to like skipping breakfast in the morning and like what that does to hormonal imbalance. Like, it's just so interesting that so many of these things that you mentioned are like stuff that a lot of people do on a day-to-day basis.
Normal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, okay. So what happens if I have low stomach acid, and how can I do like an at-home test to determine my levels?
Okay. So stomach acid, by like the scientific name, is hydrochloric acid, or HCl. So first off, we need to be able to maintain a certain pH level in our stomach that's healthy to sustain a healthy environment and be able to, one, digest and also absorb our food and necessary nutrients. So a typical, or like a good stomach acid level would be around 1.5 to 3.5 in the stomach pH levels. And we can end up with a tons of deficiencies, bloating, reflux issues, GERD, and we can get our SIBO if we have low stomach acid. So what a lot of people don't know is like they think they have too much stomach acid when they have reflux issues, but it's actually too low. And then that will weaken like the esophageal flap that kind of like opens and closes the sphincter to control what comes into our esophagus. Obviously, we don't want things coming back up, but that can happen when it gets weak and then we get those reflux issues, which is crazy. So like when you're having Tums, you're just, again, suppressing your stomach acid and not, again, getting to the root cause. But yeah, so it's super necessary for a healthy gut environment overall. And there is a way that you can test, like you said, at home. I like to do it on a average of maybe 3 to 4 days in a row. That way you at least get a more sure reading, I guess, that instead of just trying once.
Totally.
But all you have to do is wake up, no water, on an empty stomach. You make like 4 ounces of water, a 1/4 teaspoon of baking soda. I know it sounds kind of gross. And yeah, you just basically shoot it down. Like, it's not the most fun thing, but it's over in a second. You drink that on an empty stomach. So make sure you haven't had any other water before. And the idea is that if you burp within like a minute or two, your stomach acid is pretty fine. But if it takes longer than like 2 minutes to 3 minutes and you don't end up burping for that long, then it's a big sign that your stomach acid could be low.
Wait.
So
I feel like I need to try this now.
Yeah.
I had no idea that you could test your like stomach acidity at home. That's
Right.
crazy.
And it's like I said, not like the most accurate thing ever, but it is helpful at least in seeing, like I said, do it like 3 to 5 days in a row, get an
So you can
average
know.
of time. Yeah.
Wow.
Sometimes, yeah, you never
Have
know.
you tried it?
I have, yeah. And it took me, I think, over 2 minutes to after. So I was like, oh, I've got a problem. So
My love
yeah,
for coffee will probably show at this moment.
oh my gosh,
Yeah.
exactly. I
Wow.
also
Yeah.
wanted to say, though, if you're interested, there's a few lab tests, like typical blood tests that anyone could get. I mean, your doctor, they might be on your CMP, which is your comprehensive metabolic panel, and maybe a few others, but most of them can be found in like regular blood labs. They can also show and be signs of low stomach acid. Because a lot of people don't know this at all. Like, they get their labs done, they're like, cool, like, what do I do with this information? What is
Yes.
a BUN? What is uric acid?
No.
So you can actually learn things about your gut through these simple lab tests.
Tell us about it, because I feel like I'm one of those people who, the one time I got blood work done, which was a long time ago before I knew about functional medicine, it's like you get it back and you genuinely, like you just said, you're so confused. You're like, I'm not a doctor. I don't know what to do with this. So tell us, Alyssa.
Okay.
Yeah.
So a few of them, one is called BUN. It's BUN. It'll be capitalized. And so the ranges are different if you're looking at the functional perspective to conventional, where most doctors will be looking at those ranges. So people need to write this down. 10 to 16 is the range, so it's a lot shorter. I think the conventional is like 6 to 24, so a lot wider.
Which, sorry not to interrupt,
You're
but
good.
just do you mind explaining to people why is it different for functional versus conventional? Because I find that really interesting. Yeah.
Me too. I love it. And I will never go back on looking at labs differently anymore. So basically the idea is that your conventional labs, or if you go to your, primary care, they're usually going to look at the conventional westernized reference ranges, which are a lot wider and longer. And basically they're looking for a pathological disease. And they're also based off of a bell curve of 95% of people that come into the doctor's office. And if you, go ahead.
No, why would we base the standard if most of America is unhealthy? Why would we base the standard off? Yeah, go ahead.
Exactly. So if you look around, not everyone is really that healthy. And obviously looks aren't everything, but you can be healthy or you can be unhealthy without having a pathological disease. So the goal with functional lab analysis is to, again, help get to that root cause, help find answers to unexplained symptoms that you've been having, and get you a much deeper dive on a shorter reference range so you can actually find dysfunctions going on before they manifest maybe something worse.
Absolutely. Why I love this idea of optimizing our life. We shouldn't just get to survival. We should get to optimal levels.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
Yeah. No,
I don't want to live on survival mode. It's not healthy at all.
It's not fun either. So
no, I've been there. So
yeah. Okay, so back to what were the ranges for that? that you were
Yeah,
talking?
so the first one, if your bun levels are high, that can point to low stomach acid or dysbiosis, or low hydrochloric acid. So that one is 10 to 16. The next one is high uric acid. So that reference range is just 3 to 4.7. So not very large. The next one is low protein. So that one will just be literally protein in your lab list of biomarkers. If it's low, so the reference range you want to look for is 6.9 to 8.1. There's just a couple more. So low albumin is another one, 4.5 to 5. So it's literally very small reference range. And then the last one is low globulin, and that one's only 2.4 to 2.8 for that reference range. So basically showing us that you need, or you've had a long-term hydrochloric acid need, and even that one can point to like gastric inflammation too. So a lot of things you can learn in simple labs that no one tells you.
No, seriously, that is so helpful. So guys, if you're getting your labs done, save this episode, come back, listen to those ranges and look at it. Or work with someone like Alyssa who can help you read your labs and understand what those things mean. Today's podcast is brought to you by the Premium Center for Regenerative Medicine and Stem Cell Therapy in the Northwest Center for Regenerative Medicine. Get back to the activities that you love without needing surgery. You can book your appointment at nwc4rm.com. Again, that's nwc4rm.com. This podcast is also brought to you by Rare Wellness Supplements. You can head over to rareplanthealth.com to get your supplements. My personal favorite is the premium fish oil filled with omega-3s. Again, you can go to rareplanthealth.com and get the supplements that you most need to support your health and wellness today. Lastly, this podcast is also brought to you by Rare Wellness. Rare Wellness is located on the South Hill in Spokane and is one center that provides all the wellness tools that you could need. Whether you're looking for a hands-on, premium, intimate yoga studio with a therapeutic emphasis, bar classes, Tai Chi classes, if you're looking for skincare treatments, injectable, hydrofacial, microneedling, organic spa treatments, if you're wanting to get therapeutic massaged or book functional medicine appointments to get down to the root cause of your inflammation, Rare Wellness is the place for you. Whatever your wellness needs are, they have it covered. So to book your appointment today, go to rarewellness.com. Again, go to rarewellness.com and mention this podcast for 10% off when you're booking. Okay, time to get back to the episode. Okay, so anyone who has heard about gut health has also probably heard the term leaky gut. What is leaky gut?
So again, the scientific term for it is intestinal permeability. And again, it's a common dysfunction, I guess, that more and more people are popping up with, mainly because of one, like the food sources that are available to us in America, like so many chemicals and toxins that are involved, like for soil quality and whatnot. So just the food that we have access to is one thing. And then the stress that we're exposed to or that we create ourselves, like obviously COVID was a large stressor for a lot of people. And I feel like since then, people have just been like on way more high alert. But anyway, so in our intestinal lining, we have like one cell layer called the endothelial lining. And that determines what gets absorbed or not into our body. And so it's a protective layer, which is really important. And this lining has what's called tight junctions. And so if you can imagine like a coffee filter, we obviously want the grounds to stay in the filter and not get through to our coffee.
You don't
or
want
espresso.
gritty coffee. No, yeah.
No one likes that. And so that is what kind of maintaining the integrity of the barrier. And if that barrier becomes weak or the mucus lining around it becomes weak as well, which can be a cause of low stomach acid, that will then start to allow undigested food particles through pathogens or bad bacteria to the blood. So if you imagine, like, instead of that coffee filter, it's more of like a larger drainer for spaghetti, let's say. Like sure, the spaghetti will be caught, but if you had other little particles in there, they're going to get through those holes, which is also not great. So that then is kind of the term that it's been given, leaky gut, because things are leaking through that intestinal lining. So, and mind you, like 60% of our immune system is right underneath this layer.
That's
so
crazy.
You can imagine pathogens or bad bacteria getting through our blood and our immune system. That can wreak havoc on a lot of things.
Yeah. So like, what are some symptoms that I might be experiencing to know that like I might have leaky gut?
Yeah. So a lot of things, and some things that you might not expect either with when related to gut health. So some people might just think the typical like bloating, gas, or pain or distension in your stomach. That's pretty common. But other things such as fatigue, migraines, joint pain, acne, eczema, rosacea, like other skin issues, inflammation, asthma, swelling, diarrhea,
Wow.
constipation, food sensitivities, depression, anxiety. So quite a lot.
Okay, so I know someone right now is listening and is like, could I have leaky gut? I experience a lot of these symptoms. So is there hope? What do you do? What do you do if you're like, I think I have leaky gut, I want to get tested? What do you do about it?
Totally. So another thing too is like, if you've been, I mean, it's good to know your health history. So if you've been on antibiotics a lot, that is a large cause of leaky gut. Toxins that we're exposed to, whether it's environmental or internal, and then, or the food that we eat, even emulsifiers like gums or the carrageenans and certain food that we eat, gluten. So, and like I said, the low stomach acid. So there is definitely hope. There's, and I like to present it in a way like that. Like we can't just throw everything at it at once, because again, that's overwhelming. That's going to cause more stress on top of the stress you're probably already experiencing. So one of the first steps is just kind of remove inflammatory foods, or if you do have certain food sensitivities, you can by removing those. Obviously, we'll want to hopefully get back to those food sensitivities once your gut is healed. That way you can eat them, because leaky gut can cause like actually more development of food sensitivities. So if you're like, wow, I can only eat this, this, and this, and then, you know, a few months later, oh my gosh, I can't even eat these anymore. Like the list just grows. So, which is really unfortunate. So removing those things first, maybe processed foods or sugars, toxins, people in your life that are sick,
remove
if you
them.
can, or just get boundaries at least, you know,
good.
make boundaries. I know, like I had a, not that like this was a solving thing, but I left my job and that was like a large relief for my whole body to regulate.
No, I can 100% relate. It's sometimes there's a period of time where, at least through my personal experience, I don't know if you can relate to this, Alyssa, but, and maybe someone listening can too, but I was obsessive about eating healthy, and I ate so healthy, but I had no boundaries in my life. I was such a people pleaser. I had so much stress in my life. I couldn't, like, I was so healthy, everything affected me badly. I was constantly bloated, had so much acne. It didn't matter how healthy I ate, how whatever I did, like it was just so bad. Later on, I was working out obsessively. Then later on, now I'm like, I created, like, have lowered my stress levels, set boundaries with people, no longer a people pleaser in the same way, like I'm recovering people pleaser. And I eat a lot, like I'm way less strict with what I eat, and way less obsessive, work out less than I used to, and yet I see better results. So it's just like, I love what you're saying, and I've definitely experienced it for myself. I don't know what your experience has been like, but
I'm so happy for you. And that's just like obviously proves that we can get better. So but other things like the stress management, like I went back, if we go back to the cortisol thing, get daylight every day in the morning, especially. It's really helpful. Again, kind of bringing yourself back to basics, like you said, because again, if we just are overwhelming our nervous system with all these things like supplements and this person said this and all this information, then we're just still going to be in fight or flight, and our body, it will not be allowed to heal. So that's a big portion of leaky gut healing in the first place. And maybe leaning into more healthy relationships, like the people you do appreciate and love that don't bother you, they support you with whatever, leaning into those relationships more, because it's been shown like literally the people around us that do love us and support us can help our whole, everything.
It's so true.
Movement every day, breathing practices are really big. Stretching, and even one, like you said, slowing down your activity level, like not being crazy in the gym or running outside or whatever it is. Like maybe to take some steps back at first. Endocrine disruptors, so things in our beauty products, that's a huge thing. Cleaning supplies, whatnot, candles. Don't go to Bath and Body Works, please. And then, so after you kind of remove those things, it's like being able to replace with either digestive enzymes or bitters. If you have heard of those, we can talk about them more a little bit later. And really building your stomach acid back up, like those digestive enzymes and bitters can help to do so. Different herbs.
What are bitters?
So basically, they're either an herb or foods, and they can be made into tincture form. So that you can take like by a little bottle under your tongue before meals. But our society, like America, has got so far removed from eating bitter foods because, one, they don't always like taste that good, obviously. But even things like such as arugula or dandelion root, those are bitter foods. Coffee is a bitter. But the thing is, we add sugar to it. We like sugar in America, and we have gotten away from bitters and then added sugars. And so that causes an imbalance as well. But basically, they can help build up those digestive juices in our stomach before we eat. So then it's like, oh, hey, we're going to be eating, and we need to be processing and absorbing. So it's just a way to kind of boost that stomach acid production a little bit.
So good. I love it.
But yeah, lots of things we can do. And then it's like getting later into, more supplements down the road if you need more support of healing the intestinal lining afterward, even supporting your liver and doing prebiotics or probiotics later on. Again, we can get into that too, which I know we will. But or certain vitamins like vitamin A, vitamin E, and C are really helpful for supporting our gut lining too.
No, this is literally such a helpful list. I'm like, I'm going to like re-listen to this later. Write everything down and be like, okay, which ones am I implementing? Which ones am I not? Okay, so Alyssa, how do you feel about influencers and what they have to say about gut health?
I am on TikTok a lot. I love TikTok.
Me too.
Know about you guys out there, but so I like see these things a lot, and I will just shake my head. And some people are really helpful. There's a lot of knowledgeable people out there, which is great. But the only thing is that like it's misinformation, and one, it's again when it comes to gut health specifically, if you're like literally searching like how can I support my gut, or you come across this girl, it's like, oh, this and this is what I did for my gut health, and now I'm cured. The order in which you do things really does matter when it comes to gut health, because one, if we do have leaky gut, you can have a higher chance of developing SIBO, which is small intestinal bacterial overgrowth. So that one, basically you're getting an overgrowth of bad bacteria in your small intestine. And things will get fermented, like those undigested food particles or more bacteria, which then will cause those symptoms of like really bad bloating, gas, severe like constipation or diarrhea that's really uncomfortable, and even, more multitude of problems. So basically, when people are telling you, like I see this often, is, okay, fermented foods is one great thing to help with gut health. Well, yes, But if you have SIBO, no,
Right.
that's not
Like,
what you
it's
should be doing
nuanced.
first.
It
Yep,
depends on the
exactly.
person. Yeah.
Exactly. And I get like having general information out there is great, but it comes back to like a lot of people like you and me at our worst times, we're literally searching because we're at our wits' end. Like, this is, I need help. I need to do something. So a lot of girls, women out there are searching like, what can I do for gut health? So they're in a bad spot. And maybe they have done the basic thing to help and they're still not getting better. Issues you can't solve. Those are a lot of the people that are going to be searching those questions or things in videos. And then they're told to have fermented foods or start with a probiotic, one, not even knowing what kind of probiotic to have. Again, they'll probably exacerbate their symptoms and make things worse. So that's really unfortunate.
No, it is really sad, like you said, because it's like you're already at like such a vulnerable place, and then you're met with more misinformation.
Exactly.
So,
and a lot of times they'll like, they'll just basically present their product or whatever they're talking about, and then probably search on Google like the benefits of it, and then just repeat those benefits in their video to help people. But it's really harmful.
Complete misinformation, and it's a business at the end of the day. So a lot of these people that you see online promoting stuff, like, do your research, go to your provider, find someone, I always recommend someone functional, so that you're not just going back to that survival mode, but really looking at the root cause, and stop asking TikTok for, here I am doing the same thing, but stop asking TikTok for all of the answers and go consult someone who actually can help deal with the root cause of your problem. Yeah.
Yeah. Because that's like the main thing is being able to have a guidance. And yeah, those practices are great, but in which place of your life do we need to adapt those or adopt those practices? It might not be the best time for you right now.
Yeah.
And one other large thing, which is crazy, with you like know more about SIBO, is that herbs, like certain herbs, are really helpful, like that have mucilaginous properties that help heal the intestinal lining. But the crazy thing is that if you're going to take those herbs, some of them you can find in teas, like marshmallow root, licorice, slippery elm, aloe. It's a big one. Those herbs can actually cause like microbial fermentation in the intestines if you already have SIBO. So it's definitely not safe to take if you have SIBO present. Like, you've got to heal that first, and then you can slowly add those things.
Yeah.
So even like all these good things we hear about, again, can be harmful. So just take note.
Take note and go get tested.
Yeah.
So, okay, so we've talked about some of these stuff. You mentioned earlier postbiotics or probiotics. Why are they important? Who are they for?
Yes. So, we have probiotics, prebiotics, and then what's called postbiotics, which not a lot of people hear about the postbiotics. So prebiotics are what obviously feeds our healthy bacteria in the gut microbiome. And then probiotics are the live organisms that help and can provide a benefit to the host, meaning us. And then postbiotics are basically they're called bioactive products, and they're basically a byproduct of digesting prebiotics. So they go through bacterial fermentation, and that's what comes out of it. So there are things such as short chain fatty acids, which can be found in food with like dietary fibers, like grains or proteins. But so don't be afraid of carbohydrates, like good quality ones, because they give us short chain fatty acids, which are really important for the gut, other enzymes, peptides, vitamins, and organic acids. So it really it's dependent upon like what we consume, if we have enough pre and probiotics in the body. Something interesting, if you want to hear about probiotics, I'll just read this because this is another thing about being a functional nutritionist, is being evidence-based. That's another large thing that people leave out, again, like just describing the root cause, but like we have to be evidence-based to provide the best healing for our clients. And so probiotics in the most recent history, if you like maybe look it up on Google, the definition will be an organism or substance that contributes to intestinal microbial balance and is a benefit to the host, or it's a live microorganism.
Right.
But the more current definition is it's a probiotic includes preparations that contain viable microbial agents that have been demonstrated to improve health. So probiotics have to have evidence behind them that they're actually providing benefit to the host. So what we can, let's say fermented foods like yogurt, sauerkraut, kefir, all those things like people and kombucha will say that are probiotics, right? They're not actually probiotics. So these things like lack specific therapeutic qualities. So they might, because they're not really like controlled, we don't know, there's like an undefined microbial content in them. If we get like a probiotic in a capsule form or whatever, those obviously will say 10 billion strains or 20 billion, whatever, that we know the microbial content. We don't know the content of all these foods, so they can't really be considered full probiotic. They are just a live and active culture, basically. So that's just something interesting to know when you like talk about probiotics. They're not; those foods aren't actually probiotic.
Right.
Does that make sense?
It has to be like measurable in order.
Right.
Right. No, that makes total sense. No, I feel like this is just like so good to like I never heard of the term postbiotics before.
Right.
And I feel like there's so much like we talked about earlier, our education on gut health a lot of times is either misinformed or limited. And so I feel like this conversation is helping me so much in just understanding more about it. Yeah, I love it.
Perfect. And then I was gonna say for the rest of the postbiotics, so they'll help like improve our immune system. They slow down growth of harmful bacteria, improve digestive health, and they act as like immunomodulatory. So for our immune system, antioxidant and antimicrobial, it reduce inflammation too. So, and again, it's like dependent on what we eat to help produce those postbiotics. So, just preparing yourself with the right foods, basically, then you'll be able to produce postbiotics.
So good. Okay, so before we move into the practical tip for our listeners, are you okay if we do? We asked a couple of our listeners for questions that they have. Are you okay if we do a little rapid fire, just asking questions that people have?
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay. So one of our listeners asked, how do I even know I need to fix my gut health?
Oh, so the crazy thing is that, so many gut, like typical gut symptoms you might hear that we talked about, like bloating, gas, all those things, you might not be experiencing, but you might be experiencing other symptoms, like we mentioned, the joint pain or fatigue or migraine, things that are kind of unexpected that you might not think is due to your gut health. But so it's really taking a deep dive or like journaling if you can, like what symptoms do you experience on a day-to-day basis. And for me, like, I feel like everyone has to have some sort of like compromised gut barrier to an extent. So maybe it's not that you're presenting with any really extreme or severe symptoms at the time being, but the goal would just to be maintain your overall gut health in the first place, so those things don't happen.
I love that. We all have a gut. We all have a microbiome. Like we can all work on it. Yeah. So I feel like it's like our muscles. It's like, well, how do I know I need to work on my muscle strength? Like, well, like everyone needs to work on their muscle strength.
Like I said, it's the biggest organ for digestion,
100%.
So.
Yeah. Okay. So what would be your number one recommendation to take away and or add to your diet for a happy gut?
Let's see. For adding, I would say daylight every day.
Okay.
Again, whether it's just daylight or sunlight, if you can in the morning to regulate your circadian rhythm, so important. Otherwise, I would say adding those digestive bitters is super awesome. Like I said, we're straying away from bitter food, so stay away from that sugar.
Sugar's
And,
added in
yeah.
everything in America, and like you said, it's I never even thought about that. Like, we really don't eat bitter food. Yeah.
Yeah, it's awful.
Yeah.
Magnesium glycinate is great for adding, especially for stress. And then taking away, again, I would just probably say like processed foods, inflammatory foods as much as you can. And probably or too stressful of people in your life.
Yep. No, this is so good. You already answered this. What else can affect gut health beyond what you eat or drink? I feel like the whole episode answered that. Like, people.
Yeah. Other accessory systems in our body, hormones, thyroid, eating disorders, as you kind of mentioned, as I've experienced with, that literally I think was the number one driver to growing up my gut health.
100%. Yeah.
Stress. Yeah, we kind of covered it.
Yeah. Okay. The truth on fermented drinks and food. I know we've covered a lot of these, but I'm just going to do them anyway. The truth on fermented drinks and food. Is it a fad, or is there evidence in kombucha?
No. Well, I do love kombucha. I guess you just have to look for more of like naturally produced ones, so ones without added sugars. So there's so many brands out there that are great and whatnot, but they do add sugars. And obviously we can't have kombucha without sugar, like it has its sugars in the whole fermentation process and whatnot. But I would just stay away from ones with added sugars. Maybe look for a locally produced one. I know there's, especially where we're at in Idaho or Spokane, there's some local producers at least, or a lot of people around the area, especially Idaho, like homesteaders or whatever, they'll make their own. So it's accessible at least. But yeah, obviously, like I said, it's not an actual probiotic, but it can be helpful in aiding, especially it's a good for prebiotics. And then again, feeding our healthy gut bacteria. But again, stay away from it if you suspect maybe SIBO or overgrowth, dysbiosis.
Oh, that was a great advice. And then, okay, someone said, oh God, so many, for answering the questions. Oh God, so many. I had E. coli in February and I don't feel recovered. I'm still trying probiotic and it's not helping.
Okay, so I would first ask, where did it come from? Like, how did you get it for the first place, or what caused high E. coli on a test? And then did you have to go on antibiotic at all for it? Like, if you went to the doctor, did they prescribe that for you? Because that can have an effect. Especially if your probiotics aren't helping. Again, it can be like an out of order sort of thing in the process of healing. So trying antimicrobials are helpful. So things like oregano oil or the herb itself. Berberine is a good one. Fruit seed extract. Again, all these things come with like disclaimers. Make sure to do your research before you just go and take them. Obviously, probably try to find someone who can guide you and like the dosing and everything. And then garlic is actually great antimicrobial as well.
Do you do online, or do you take clients online?
Yeah, that will be my next step basically. So doing online one-on-one. Yeah.
So if someone who's asking any of these questions like wants to see you or just book a one-on-one with you, where should they go to find you? Can they DM you on Instagram, or what's the best way to contact you?
Yeah, I like to use, just to keep it like organized, my nutrition page. It's a Balance Approaches FN, so functional nutrition. If you just find my regular page, that's fine too. But yeah, you can DM me there. I'm working on getting an email and website set up and everything. But that would be the best place to do Instagram. And my goal is to take people by August, because I will be leaving my current job in Sandpoint in August. So that will be how I get my business up and going, starting in August will be the goal.
Perfect. So we'll link your Instagrams down in the description below, so everyone has access to that. And we have more questions. I just wanted to throw that out.
Perfect.
There. This is the same question. What does kombucha actually strengthen your gut?
Again, I would say just providing live cultures, live or active cultures to the body. So it can just help in promoting more production of good bacteria in the gut, I would say. But again, it's just coming to the fact, like, thinking and being aware of how you feel after drinking it or eating fermented foods. Like, do you get a reaction from it? With it, any sort of reaction? Do you get more bloated after drinking it? Do you have to go to the bathroom right away? Like, does it increase your gastric motility and you have to, have diarrhea or whatever? So just
what does
being
it mean
mindful
if I do?
around those things.
Like, if I drink kombucha and it makes me run, what do I do?
I would probably take it away for a while and then
does that mean that my gut's
reassessing.
not healthy, or like, I don't know, I guess,
Right,
like,
so it's probably coming back to a leaky gut situation. So especially people, if that's another kind of symptom of leaky gut, is like, one, if you like have a food and body responds quickly to it, super quick gastric motility, that can cause a diarrhea, then, or even if you have like visible food particles or like food in your stool, that's another sign that you probably have leaky gut as well. So other things to look for in testing yourself, obviously bowel movement per day is really important, and what your stool looks like in the first place.
Alyssa, I feel like we could just talk about any one of these areas for so long. But to wrap things up, we love to end every episode with a practical tip for our listeners. So if someone's listening to this and they forgot everything except for one thing, what would that one thing that you recommend applying to their lives be?
I would say to be kind to yourself, because being mean to yourself, and I've known it from firsthand experience, is not going to get you anywhere. I feel like I lost literally 2 to 3 years off of my life from being hyper-focused and in a bad mental space. And I barely remember like who I was or what I was like during those years. And so again, literally, if you forget anything from this, all the tips and whatnot, just try to be kind to yourself and take it back to the basic.
No, that's so good. And I know that there's someone listening who's going to be able to relate to that. And so something that started from a need for yourself is like now you're able to help so many other people walk through that journey and heal their guts, but also just like have a better relationship with food, exercise, diet themselves. And I really admire that. I really respect that. I learned so much from our conversation, and I would love to have you back on and talk more in the future.
Thank you.
So guys, if you're listening, go check Alyssa out on Instagram. Both of her handles will be in the caption, in the description of this episode. If you guys have questions that you want us to ask Alyssa or any other expert, DM us on our Instagram at Real Wellness Podcast. Everything will stay anonymous. And this podcast is really designed to help you heal, give you the tools that you need to thrive. Alyssa, thank you so much for being on today.
Well, thank you. I appreciate you having me. I had a really fun time, and I hope we can do it again.
100%. Bye, guys.